Hello and welcome to our program titled PAA Members Save with Total Energy Solutions and Procurement. My name is Carrie Shepard, Marketing Analytics Manager for APPI Energy, and I'll be your moderator for today's webcast. Please note that all participant lines are muted. Please submit questions anytime during the session by using the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. Simply type your question and click the send button next to the box. Our presenters today are Dan Forgas and Drew Pangborn with APPI Energy. Joining us as well this morning is Allison Mitchell with PAA. Welcome, Allison.
Good morning. I just want to take a few minutes to introduce our presenters today, and we're happy to have them. Dan Forgas, Director of Procurement and Strategic Markets, and Drew Pangborn, Energy Consultant. APPI has been PAA's preferred energy consultant since 2009. And this member benefit has helped hundreds of our members throughout the Commonwealth. Many of you may have met Drew at our events, as he is usually in attendance, and APPI Energy are generous sponsors as well at all of our events. Yes, they provide electricity and natural gas procurement, but this year they are rolling out the Energy Solutions division for efficiency projects and improved sustainability. They are starting off regionally in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware, and you will hear a little about that today. We want our members, all of you, to have a one-stop member benefit for all things energy, and APP definitely fits that bill. I hope you all enjoy the program and look forward to any of your feedback at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Appreciate the warm introduction on your behalf. I'll actually take time right now to wish you a happy birthday as well, which we were aware of this morning too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We certainly appreciate and value the endorsement and relationship that we've built with the PAA and their dealer base over the last decade or so, and certainly wish to continue with that initiative going forward. As Allison mentioned, if you could, happy to answer or address any questions, but we'll do that towards the end. We'll start out from the top, from the beginning, with just a kind of a broader idea of who APPI is and really the member benefit opportunity at hand for dealers. We're independent energy consultants that assist dealerships across the state and other deregulated markets too, but independent energy consultants helping you navigate the maze with this idea of gas and electricity procurement initiatives. Primarily, that's how we're able to reduce and manage energy expenses for dealers across the Commonwealth. Price per kilowatt hour shopping, price per decatherm shopping, that's where we come into play, being an independent consultant endorsed by the association to help you advantage attractive solutions that might be viable for your store and business going forward. We're here to give you access to any and all solutions that are available between these suppliers, but know that one big differentiating factor between APPI and the rest of the consulting outfits that you may have received calls from is number one, the exclusive endorsement from PAA, obviously, but number two, the top tier suppliers that exist on our platform. We are only here to provide you with top tier recommendable solutions from the absolute best suppliers in the industry. We've been active and operational across the country doing just this for, well, a little over 22, 23 years now. With that in mind, we've come across many different suppliers over the years, some good, some bad, but know that we are only putting the absolute best suppliers in front of you, knowing that we have the PAA backing us and with this endorsement and all. So know that you're only working with the best suppliers when you receive a proposal and an offer from APPI. One of my largest takeaways, at least with our member benefit services, it would behoove you not to take advantage of this solution, only because it's available to you as a member benefit at no upfront cost or obligation. Why not take a look and see what APPI can provide to you within the realm of gas and electricity solutions, as well as some other demand side related solutions that we'll get into a little bit later. My colleague will talk about that. But again, for us to take a look, no harm, no foul. Even if you end up not going with APPI for your solution, that's okay. Might as well use us as a resource, if anything. Again, it's part of the association's member benefit platform, so we would encourage you to do so. it's not always as simple too as just taking a look at, well, this is a competitive price, you should lock this in for as long as possible. That's where we can kind of get strategic with this, and we're solely here to work on your behalf, provide you with exactly the solutions that you would be geared towards or might be leaning towards. We're not here to put recommend an offer that might not be in line with exactly what you're looking for. To go along with that, we have extensive data and analytics that will help you better determine, I should say, how long to buy for the contract, whether it's gas or electricity, and certainly how long of a duration you'd like to go as well. We have a couple of tools that we'll get into a little bit later that can assist in that regard as well. We also have a very exclusive and proprietary database of energy prices and trends that kind of allude to or go along with what I had just mentioned. One of the other great benefits of our program and services available is that there's just minimal time involved upfront and even during the process on your behalf. We really like to be the liaison here and take this off your plate, for lack of a better term, and roll our sleeves up and get to work for you. As long as you can provide us with a recent electricity or gas statement from every account that you'd like to be included in the quote, along with a non-binding utility usage request form, kind of like a permission slip that allows us to gather data from the utility. It's all that we need to get started with the request, formulate the request, gather options, present them on an easy to read and understand proposal, and then we can talk about the solutions at that point. So again, very minimal time involved on your end to have us do the legwork for you. The number one takeaway, in my opinion, would be the fact that we are, as I mentioned earlier, independent, unbiased, and ethical, to say the least. We are here to advocate for you and always you, never on behalf of the supplier, never on behalf of your utility. We're here advocating for you to make sure that you get the most aggressive and negotiated supplier terms, price, and contract terms as well. So at this point in the process, again, if it makes sense for us to go down this route of taking a look at some competitive gas or electricity options behind your utility, that's really where we start the ball. Really what we're here to do, again, is gather all of that data, the billing statements and utility usage request forms, take a look at the opportunity at hand. From here, we would submit the RFP to, as I mentioned, those 41 top tier vetted suppliers by our in-house corporate and executive VP counsel, Mike Payne. He's there to provide us with again, all of these top tier vetted solutions from the various suppliers. Once we get the results back, it does take a few days, maybe 4 to 5 business days at most, for all suppliers to respond. We formulate their offers on a very easy to read and understand proposal, which we'll give you an example of here in a minute. From there, we'll help you better determine what makes the most sense here. We will certainly make a recommendation and give you some insight as to why this makes the most sense in our minds, but we of course need dialogue from you. A 48-month term might not be the most comfortable or advantageous specific to your needs, or perhaps on the other end, a short-term 12-month option may not be exactly what you're looking for, and that's where we'd like to chat with you and consult, if anything, to talk about what the best option would be. The next step would, of course, be, if we can narrow it down to a particular supplier or two, we're here to be your liaison again and negotiate supply contracts through a variety of different ways or methods. You might find that even though two suppliers are neck and neck or very close on a particular term or offer, there might be some subtle differences or advantages, I should say, to go with one supplier over the other. That's when we would come in to better negotiate that supply contract, whether it would be providing better net payment terms on that agreement. Perhaps you would want to look into adding an additional account onto the contract at a later date, maybe a few months after the current contract for the main store is coming due to expire. That's known as a staggered start option. These are just a couple of examples of things that we are more than happy to go to bat for you on with the suppliers and make sure that the solution is curtailed to exactly what you need going forward. Furthermore, our process doesn't just end at that point, where if you were to sign a contract and we place you with a particular supplier, by no means do our services end at that point. And that's really where the member benefit from PAA actually kicks in. We're advocates here on your behalf, but we're also monitoring the markets throughout the duration of your agreement. Myself included, our entire consulting team along with our dedicated customer service staff too. But all of us will be in contact with you at different points throughout the duration of the agreement to, well, number one, check in just to make sure that everything is A-okay, billing looks okay, there's no questions or concerns surrounding that. If there is a question or potentially a billing issue, that's really where we encourage ourselves, if anything, or encourage you to let us take the reins and be your liaison again to work out the scenario or issue or concern that you may have with a particular supplier or billing method or practice, what have you. That is exactly why our customer service team is here, to take this off your plate so you can go back to doing exactly what it is you do best, which is running a dealership, getting to payroll, hiring people, looking to expand, what have you. As I mentioned earlier, this is kind of the end result of taking a look, utilizing the member benefit. We're here to provide you with this deliverable, this tangible proposal that shows various offers from various top-tier suppliers that are, again, competing side by side, same day for your business. And that's a crucial element with this idea of electricity and gas procurement purchasing. Is if you're looking at an offer from one supplier that was given on Monday versus a supplier option that was given on Thursday, you're comparing apples to oranges. And that's another key point that we'd like to focus on here. All of these bids that you see here on the screen from these various top tier suppliers were provided same time, same day, so that you can truly make an accurate, not just an apples to apples, but a green apples to green apples comparison of what supplier price offers might be available to you. We make sure that everyone is on an equal and level playing field, and that no other supplier obviously has any idea of where the other suppliers are coming in. They're blindfolded, if you will, with their options. And you can see the variance to some degree with some of the supplier solutions that are being presented here. A couple of key takeaways that I'll note here on the proposal, as I had mentioned, number one is the start date of February 5th. That's would be a key element to consider here, along with the actual power flow start month, which is listed in the top right-hand corner of April 2019. Although we're here in the middle of February, with the ability of these future contracts, we're able to take advantage of the futures market and begin looking at attractive renewal solutions well in advance. So here's an example of a dealer who's deciding, well, my contract's up in April, but I don't have to wait and back myself into a corner to start looking at things, say, in the middle or end of March. We might as well get a head start on this, assuming prevailing market conditions look favorable. Let's get a head start. Let's start taking a look at some options a few months prior to my contract ending. And that's exactly what we're doing here. You'll see also a couple of key takeaways. The etched black box around Constellation's 24-month offer just identifies the absolute lowest number on the proposal. Certainly recommendable, obviously, but also APPI Energy's highest offer for the 35-month term at $695. Also on the right-hand section, here's the notes section, which is very crucial and certainly worth documenting on an initial request, just to show you the differences that are involved with these energy suppliers. You might be getting a better offer from one supplier to the next, but really at what cost? And this is where we'd want to identify some of those specifics. For instance, if their offer's compelling, not as compelling as Constellation's, but FreePoint Energy is only offering a 25% swing provision with that available fixed price offer. Most other suppliers on here are offering 100% swing. We can dissect that more if interested, but any dealer would want to have the benefit of full 100% swing versus the 25%. Just to give you one example, another quick note example would be the fact that Direct Energy is here excluding one particular account, something to note if you were considering Direct as an option going forward. And I mentioned this earlier, the whole idea of the futures market and getting, well, competitive with this whole idea of price shopping or electricity and gas solution shopping. Your utility may be familiar with this already, but whichever utility you're behind, whether it's Penelec, MedEd, PECO, PPL, their default tariff or price to compare is more or less issued on a quarterly basis up till now. You've always had that in the background, and it really goes with the ebbs and flows of the market. The utility is going out not at opportune times per se, but they're going out when they have to purchase a large block of generation or electricity supply or gas supply again, not at an opportune time, essentially to resell back to you, the end user, the customer, over the next quarter or 3-month period. And whatever price is garnered on that particular day, that's the price that you receive as far as a price to compare. You can get competitive with this. This is obviously why APPI is involved in many other outfits as well. By taking a look when market conditions are more favorable than others, you can get ahead of the game, if you will, and capture prices below that default tariff or that benchmark that's been in place. This chart, this illustration here shows, well, a couple of things. One, it's the PJM, Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland. This is the grid system that we all operate on. They're the day-ahead averages. And really what I want to at least address here initially is the volatility that surrounds the market. So again, back to my point, if West Penn Power is going out, well, in January of 2014 to buy energy for the next 3 months, price isn't going to look that favorable as to perhaps if they waited a little bit longer towards the fall of 2014 to do the exact same thing. This is again where APPI can come into play and alert you as to when attractive market opportunities may exist. This chart again is specific to day ahead electricity pricing, but my one point I wanted to focus on was just the idea of market speculation and extreme temperatures. These are all things that come into play, causing prices to spike, causing prices to dip. We had a mild El Nino winter the last couple of years, and that really hasn't caused pricing to ramp up as they typically do during the winter months when demand is higher and colder temps. The need for heating is more prevalent across the country. Very similar chart to the last one too, and in fact, if you actually transpose both of these charts next to one another, you'd see that they actually correlate almost in lockstep with one another. This is a historical natural gas price trend chart, roughly over the last decade or so. And again, notice the volatility involved here. We put this up only because I'm sure many of you may know a massive amount of natural gas is used in the electricity generation process. So really as a driver or an indicator that APPI uses every day as far as to track the markets, monitor the markets, what's happening in the markets. It's looking at the NYMEX and really it's looking at gas and electricity prices. If gas is trending up one day, more than likely electricity will do the same the following day. This brings us to our next point, hence might be some of the reasons anyway why some of you are on the call today. You may have received maybe sticker shock, or you may have received your January statement here. There's a couple of changes that have recently been rolled out by those First Energy specific utilities in Pennsylvania that I had mentioned. A couple of price to compare increases that were derived here over the last couple of months. Some customers are seeing more of an increase than others, particularly behind West Penn Power's a massive jump in the default tariff. Med-Ed and Penelec, similar solutions, or similar stories, I should say, with large increases in the default price to compare. If anything, this just again points back to the market volatility here. If you haven't looked at a supplier solution yet, maybe it is time to, at the very least, get your feet wet and see what options are out there. We've been working with a lot of dealers here in the last couple of weeks anyway, since some of this new details were released on the prices to compare. But regardless, not sure if this will stay on the continuous upward trend going forward. More analysts than not speculate that prices should continue to slowly increase from here rather than decrease any further, but again, that's speculation. Chart's a little difficult to read. I almost need to. I feel like I'm at the DMV or the optometrist, having to get my eyes examined here, looking at this. But we wanted to provide this slide only because it gives more detail on our solutions and recommendations that we'll provide to you. Just because we're looking at a solution that makes sense based upon the current Penelec tariff doesn't mean that we're not looking back historically at all the changes, the updates, the ups and downs of that tariff over the last 5, 6, even 10 years in some cases. We've we've always been able to document those tariffs, and we have this information on hand to help you better make a decision. Again, we're not just going out looking at the current benchmark and seeing if it makes sense for you to contract based off that. We're really digging deep in here when we come to you with a recommendation, knowing that this looks favorable based on a 3-year average, a 5-year average behind your utilities default tariff, so on and so forth. If you would like to talk specifically more about your specific zone or utilities default price to compare over the last couple of years, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to talk to you further on that as well. Another large change kind of goes back to probably a letter that you received recently, and perhaps this was the call to action to talk with us a bit further about identifying some PAA endorsed electricity and gas solutions. The big change coming for a lot of FirstEnergy customers here in the next couple of months. As of the June meter read of this year, most customers with a demand, with a rate classification, I should say, of medium general service, even some small general service customers, that demand threshold will be lowered from 400 kW down to 100 kW. All this means, in a nutshell, is the letter that, if you're familiar with it, you should have received the letter. And all this letter is addressing or discussing is that you will be moving, instead of this quarterly adjusted price to compare, you're going to actually be moving to an hourly price going forward. It is not designed to be competitive. Typically, utilities reserve hourly price customers for very large end users, industrial sized customers. And as you can imagine, they're the first to jump ship and look at a potential fixed all-inclusive supply offer just to provide them with any sort of budget assurance, if at all possible, rather than floating. And hourly price is what you may expect it to be. It's a monthly average of these hourly figures that are derived every day, each and every day on your account. So there's extreme volatility, to say the least, with having this as an option on your account. And if you were to choose to stay, it probably would see some sort of a price increase going forward. We was actually working with a dealer here just a couple of weeks ago, who Pico has seen a similar situation for the same sized customers, medium customers. I believe he thought a decrease was in mind with this hourly demand adjustment. In fact, his cost rose anywhere from 10 to 15% at least on the initial month. So again, going back to the point, this is your utility slightly suggesting or pushing you to, at the very least, look into this, investigate potential supply options a little bit further, because the alternative at this point is volatile. And they're telling you that in black and white. It's unknown what your price will be going forward past this point. So again, we certainly encourage you to, whether it be through us or another outfit, take a look at this sort of thing, because I can tell you right now, with prevailing market conditions based on where they're at, it does make sense. Most customers are seeing some sort of a benefit by taking a look and reducing cost against the current benchmark as well as others going forward. And with that, I'll shift gears a little bit. I'd like to throw it over to our U.S. Director of Strategic Markets, Dan Forgas. He's going to talk a little bit more about some of the additional value-added services that APPI provides on the demand reduction side, as Allison mentioned earlier, but also some key analytics too that APPI can provide in addition to the overall proposal, kind of targeting back to, well, how long do I buy for, and when do I buy? These next slides will kind of touch on that.
That's great. Thank you, Drew. And again, as Carrie mentioned earlier, feel free to throw any questions into the chat box as well, and we'll have some time at the end to address those. But to talk a little bit more about what we do and how we do it, Drew mentioned two kind of key questions that folks are always coming to us with: is now the right time to buy, and how long should I buy for? And nobody, including APPI, has a crystal ball. But what we can do is look at a couple things. We can look at a historical perspective and where the energy markets are trading from a historical standpoint. We can look at utility prices, the price to compare, as Drew mentioned. And then we look at, and really the key source of that information is what are the suppliers putting out into the market. And as is common with APPI, we don't rely on just one supplier or one source of intelligence. We aggregate all the intelligence, market intelligence that we're getting from all these suppliers. And then we marry that with basically a sister company of ours called the Energy Research Council. What they do is they track and analyze millions of data points based on what the offers that suppliers are putting out into the market. That's the best way to really understand what a supplier sees as, yeah, our price is going to fall in the future. Are they going to rise in the future? And what actionable pricing they're putting out into the market every day. Every single morning, we receive literally thousands of offers from various suppliers for different terms and different rate classes. In addition to that, APPI is running about 350 to 400 RFPs, requests for pricing, every month. So we've really got our finger on the pulse of the market to see, are prices trending up? Are they holding steady? Are they trending down? And with that kind of analytics and ability to look at that information, the ERC, Energy Research Council, is able to provide us with these types of charts. To kind of talk a little bit about the one that's on your screen at this point, just kind of breaking it down a little bit. This is in PECO in the Philadelphia area in Pennsylvania. This is a 24-month trend. So looking back to February of 17 to present day, what kind of offers are suppliers putting out into the market? And then we base it on a 1, 2, and 3 year term. That's kind of common. Folks say, well, give me 12, 24, and 36. But I'll point out here, there's no magic to that. And Drew mentioned earlier the idea of a customizable solution. Oftentimes we see a dealer may say, well, I might be selling that store. I really, I want to take advantage of the current market conditions, but I might be selling that location. So, these three over here, I want to go as long as I can. I want to go 48 months, 36 months. But this one here, I think I might sell it in a year. So again, we customize it and maybe it's not a year, maybe it's 15 months. Or it's the idea of identifying what we call sweet spots. Maybe 12, 24, and 36 are kind of the standards, but maybe a 19-month term, either because of changes you have, or just, boy, that's a more attractive price at this point. So we really try to look at a number of different terms and options for you. But again, for the sake of this chart, we looked at the blue line represents a 12-month term, 24-month is in kind of the orange, and 36 is in green. And what you really kind of see here is, again, kind of starting as a baseline of February 17, the market for about the past year and a half has been known as backwardated. Generally, that's a term a lot of folks aren't necessarily familiar with, but generally in the energy markets, typically, the longer the term, the more risk there is for the supplier, the higher the price. In a backwardated market, which we have seen up until recently, it's a little bit opposite in that the shorter terms are actually more expensive, maybe based on weather, maybe based on long-range forecasts, whatever that is, but those things change, and suppliers change their models as well. They may want larger customers in Pennsylvania. They may want smaller customers in New Jersey. So they're tweaking their models on a regular basis too. But overall, these average benchmark prices kind of aggregate all those together, normalize them. And again, you can see that from basically June of 17 till November, December of 18, the 12-month terms in blue were trading at a higher level than the longer terms. And that kind of makes sense from our world because one of the biggest drivers for energy prices is weather. And we had a cold January, kind of a warm December. Prices were attractive, but then all of a sudden weather forecasts started to say, January is going to be cold. We're going to see some polar vortex type weather. And we really saw that spike in the short-term prices, again, driving them much higher than the longer-term prices. Recently, weather has subsided a little bit. It's been a little bit warmer. Forecasts for March are warmer still. So we're starting to see those markets kind of those term lengths really come together. And again, currently we're now seeing actually 24-month terms are really trending the lowest, even lower than the 12-month, even lower than the 36-month. This changes for every market, for every month. It's constantly varying, but again, the idea here is that we're able to kind of give you a better understanding of, well, you might want to look at some of the longer term, or maybe 24 months is kind of that ideal term, you know, where it kind of matches your risk tolerance with what the market is doing at any given time. So that's a little bit about that particular chart. If we then go on to the next one, this is what we kind of say is kind of the benefit of casting a wide net. Drew mentioned we work with 41 vetted suppliers, not all necessarily here in Pennsylvania, but in the various markets that we work with. And there's about, I'm going to say about 15 to 17 that we recommend regularly in Pennsylvania. But again, the idea here is that we cast a wide net. What we're looking at, this particular chart kind of shows a high benchmark, a low benchmark, and an average benchmark price for a particular start date, for a particular term, for a particular utility. In this case, going back over the last 12 months from January of 18, suppliers were pricing a March of 2019 start. We've tracked that for the last 12 months. And again, tracking the high benchmark, low, and average for a 12-month term in PICO with a March start. Drew mentioned the idea earlier of this futures contract, if you will. A lot of folks we talk to will say, hey, I'm under contract. I'm under contract till December of this year. I'm under contract till May of next year. So why don't you call me in November, because I'll probably look at this in December. And what we say is the idea of, again, we're not saying cancel any agreements. You may get calls that say, oh, don't worry about it. You know, your current supplier won't come after you for early termination charges. They will. So we're not in the position, ever in the position of saying, hey, break your existing agreement. You know, prices are so good. Start with us. Don't worry about those early termination fees. We know that that's not the case. We're here for the long haul. We're here as a resource to PAA members. So what we'll say is, you don't necessarily need to break that agreement, but you can start the process now. You can look out and have us go to work for you. Start to identify what suppliers are the most attractive for competing for your load. Which contract terms are the most attractive to you and really fit within your risk tolerances and strategies. All these things take time. And we showed the idea earlier of market volatility. What we find is if folks that wait up until their contract is basically over, you're kind of subject to the whims of the market at that time. You don't really have the option to wait. And where weather is so dramatically impacting energy prices in the short term, to wait until the month before kind of does back you into a corner. So what we'll say is, again, 12, 18, even 24 months in advance of your contract end date, just take a look. You don't have to do anything. You're not creating any costs or obligations, but you've got kind of your own custom benchmark. Okay, when I looked at this, prices were in the 6-cent range. And then we're able to monitor the market for you up until until you actually make a decision. So at any given time, we can go out and say, well, prices are now kind of inching up towards the 6.2, 6.3, or you might want to hold off a little. We're seeing them trending down. We're now in the high fives, or whatever that example might be. So again, we encourage people starting early, kind of creating their own benchmark price, and we can monitor the market to help you take advantage of those dips in the market and really buy on the dips. Drew mentioned earlier, it's not a huge cost or time commitment, but we want to do a lot of that work for you to help you monitor the market and buy on those low spots. Thank you, Drew, for forwarding that one. Next one there. We've talked a lot about so far the idea of procurement, how you buy the power, how we can help you secure an attractive rate. There's a whole nother division, and this is kind of the other side of our presentation here today, that we're going to get in, and we call it our Energy Solutions division. This is more on the demand side or the efficiency side of things. And sometimes folks look at us and say, boy, you guys have been doing procurement for 20 some years. Now you're going to help me reduce my usage? And yeah, absolutely. We do want to be your one-stop shop, whether it's electricity procurement, natural gas, or helping you take advantage of some of these things from an efficiency standpoint, which actually help you reduce your usage. And we're more than happy to do that. So we have a whole division dedicated to our energy solutions. We'll do a future webinar that dives into these a little bit further, but wanted to at least make you aware of this. You know, a lot of folks in PAA in particular know of us from the procurement standpoint. We're really looking to provide additional solutions, additional options for you. And that may be in a number of different areas. Utility rebates. A lot of folks don't necessarily know, but we're all paying for these rebates. You'll see a small line item on your utility bill that talks about some kind of an efficiency program or something in the area of a charge that all users are paying that allows the utility to then create these rebate programs. Now, they certainly make it look like it's out of the goodness of their heart that they're going to pay you to, subsidize some of the costs for an LED or an efficiency program, reducing your usage. But again, the reality is all users are paying for those programs through a small line item, and we feel you should take advantage of that. You're helping pay for it. Those programs are out there. We can help you navigate the maze. It changes all the time, but we've got dedicated folks who really focus in on where are the most opportune places to take advantage of these utility rebates. And there's certain times of the year where the utility runs out of money and we have to, kind of sit tight for a little bit, and then they restock the funds. So it's changing all the time, and it's really hard for any given user to really track, boy, should I be doing this? How do I do the paperwork? We really try to take care of all that for you. A common example is LED lights. A lot of folks hearing that. And a lot of folks will say, oh yeah, I did this about 7 years ago. Yeah, we're good. We already did that. Well, given the changes in technology, we say that basically if you haven't done it in the last 5 years, it's probably at least worth taking a look at. Kind of like cell phones or computer technology or the internet technology, LED lighting is changing all the time. They're becoming cheaper, more reliable, better lighting. And these rebate programs vary based on the types of lights. So again, just the idea of taking a look. We've helped several dealers actually change out their parking lot lights, moving to much brighter, much more efficient, more cost efficient. But we can help you inside the dealership as well as outside as well. HVAC, again, just the idea of having a good cost efficient climate, whether it's heating or air conditioning. Solar projects, we do a lot with that. A good example here in our backyard, here we're headquartered in Salisbury, Maryland. We helped the town of Ocean City, Maryland, put in a very large solar field. But that's what a lot of folks think about is solar. Oh yeah, it's this big utility-based, a township. We've helped many folks look at rooftop programs as well, and power purchase agreements, community solar. These are all these options that folks are out there and folks have questions about. We want to help you kind of sort through the maze of that. And solar is becoming more efficient, more cost affordable all the time. So more and more folks are saying, boy, I can reduce my dependence on the utility or reduce my usage on the supplier. Maybe I'm actually even selling some of this excess power back to the utility. All things we can help you navigate through. Facility audits, we do that as well, an actual walkthrough, trying to identify some areas of potential inefficiency, maybe make it a more lighted warehouse, for instance, increasing the safety. Maybe again, it's the comfort of the employees or folks coming in inefficient processes. We can help with a lot of those things as well. The idea of utility expense benchmarking. This really goes to an online portal that APPI offers that really any commodity that's billed, we can help you track and benchmark. That might be steam, natural gas, electricity, water. Again, any utility or monthly billed commodity, we can help you track, have it on, again, access via your phone or an online portal. We found that just simply starting to monitor and pay attention to utility expenses typically drives about a 2 to 3% savings, just simply by making folks aware of maybe corporate is looking at it, maybe we're comparing one store to the other. People start to go, they turn off the lights, they turn off machines when they're not using them, those kinds of things. Just simply by tracking it, if you make no other changes, again, typically a 2 to 3% cost reduction is possible. Demand response for some of our larger clients, that's really the idea of curtailing curtailing your usage and committing to do that during periods of high demand. Generally in the summer, the utility will put out an alert. Our suppliers will put out an alert. Hey, this might be a peak day. If you can reduce your usage to a preset level, we'll pay you. The utility will actually pay you, or the supplier will pay you to reduce your usage. Not an option for everybody, but for those folks that can do that, maybe shift some work to later in the day or whatnot, who have some options to curtail some usage. That can be some pretty significant cost reductions. And in some years, there's what are known as events, where you simply get paid to be ready to do it, even though an actual event is never called. So number of different options available from that. All of these kind of go to the idea of being more efficient, reducing your usage, reducing your footprint, using less energy, using it more effectively, and ultimately helping you drive down your costs. Just to talk a little bit about us a little bit, and I make this be too chest beating for APPI, but we did want to tell you a little bit about who we are and hopefully give you a little confidence that we have been doing this since 1996. That was really the start of deregulation. We serve a little under 2,200 commercial, industrial, and government accounts. Within PAA, we're very proud to serve not over, but 165 PAA members. And that represents just over 1,000 service accounts. So again, when you look at parking lot lighting, when you look at the store itself, many dealers have multiple locations. So 165 members, but within that is over 1,000 actual electric or natural gas accounts. In addition to PAA, we're very proud to be endorsed by 157 other associations. That may be a local chamber of commerce. That may be a national or regional or state-based association, but all these groups have done their due diligence on us, have looked at competitive options, and have come and exclusively endorsed APPI to their members to really kind of cut through the clutter. We know all the folks on this webinar certainly get a lot of energy-related calls, and a lot of them start out something like, I don't know anything about you, but I can save you money. You should go get your bill. I can't believe you're not going to sign today. The sky is falling. Not at all APPI's approach. We really try to be, as Drew mentioned, a resource, an educational resource to help you take advantage of these deregulated markets, but at the same time, again, helping you make an educated decision, having the analytics and the data behind it, and rest assured, we're not going to jeopardize not only do we not want to jeopardize our relationship with you, an individual dealer, we certainly don't want to jeopardize our relationship with PAA or any of the other affinity partners that we have. So everybody's going to say, hey, you can trust me, but these associations really hold our feet to the fire that we're doing our best to represent their members. We have over 10 billion kilowatt hours of electricity and 18 million decatherms of natural gas under our management. So again, we have been doing this a while, have a number of from the very small, single location dealer up to some very large national manufacturers, and really everyone in between. We work with customers of all sizes. And again, Drew mentioned the idea of 41 vetted suppliers. There's over 250 suppliers nationally. We don't work, about half of them do not pass our rigorous due diligence. That might be the management team, the financial backing, the contract terms, whatever that is, we're going to check those out. And before we'll bring any of those offers to you, our valued clients, we've thoroughly done our homework. And there's times where we've gone and begun doing business with a supplier and realize, hey, they don't have the commitment to customer service. They're not honoring some of the contract terms, and we'll remove them from our platform. So that number varies, but currently 41 have passed our rigorous vetting process. 896 customer service cases. We're one of the few brokers who have actually a dedicated consulting or customer service team. We know that from our research about a third of folks, not just with APPI, but about a third of folks who choose a competitive supplier are going to have some reason during the term to talk to either the supplier or the utility. As Drew mentioned, we want to take that off your plate. We want to be the liaison that allows you to focus on your dealership and make that our issue. If you call here during normal business hours, you'll get a live person who picks up. You may talk to Tracy, our dedicated customer service manager. The relationships we have with these suppliers oftentimes will give us a dedicated customer service staff on the supplier end, whether that's interacting with the utility, but you know, on your behalf. All these things we want to be, again, if you have an issue, I want to add a location, I think I've got a billing error, I'm not sure of this charge. All those things are really what we're here for. As Drew mentioned, we're not at all in the business of selling you a contract and hey, we'll never see you again. We want to be your dedicated energy consultant for years to come, for not one agreement, but multiple agreements. We'll hope, you know, you'll refer us to your colleagues and suppliers. So the idea of this is not a one and done, we're going to show you a great price and you'll never hear from us again, or you won't hear from us until the month before your agreement expires. That's really not the company we are, and we're very strong dedication to customer service. In addition to our customer service folks, there's 42 full-time employees based in Salisbury, Maryland that make up APPI Energy. Where we work, obviously today we're talking about PAA and your location in Pennsylvania, but rest assured we work in multiple deregulated states, whether that's for natural gas, for electricity, and now with Energy Solutions, we really can work in any state in the US. The other thing I like to kind of reference in regards to this is, again, it gives a little bit of an idea of, I mentioned before, we have dedicated contacts within these suppliers, and we're bringing them 350 to 400 RFPs, requests for price, every month. So oftentimes we're working with the same supplier contact, not only in Pennsylvania, but in Ohio, Illinois, Texas. They want to keep us happy. Well, the idea of buying clout. We're bringing them many, many deals, many, many customers. So although you may be spending a lot of money on energy, the reality is sometimes these big utilities and sometimes even these big suppliers have kind of a utility mentality. Like, yeah, you're big, you're important, but you're one of many. To us, you are extremely important, and we're going to use our clout and our relationships with these suppliers to really advocate for you and make sure you have a good experience throughout the entire term with these suppliers. And I believe that is all we have for you this morning. We'd love to entertain some questions. We had tried to keep this at about 45 minutes. I see we're a little bit over here. So if anybody has any questions, we'd love to entertain those. And then for follow-up, Drew's and my email and direct numbers are on there as well. So Carrie or Allison, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, we get some common questions. One is, a dealer calls, their current agreement doesn't expire till, say, mid-year, say next year, 2020. And they want to know when they should start looking at renewal offers. They're concerned they don't want to miss out on a low price if it happens this spring or summer. So what's the best advice for a question like a dealer asking a question like that?
Allison, the easiest response to that would be more than likely to give us a call now or call whomever you'd like to work with and start investigating a solution sooner rather than later. Right now, prevailing market conditions are quite favorable given that we are in the middle of winter. I mentioned this earlier, but from a historical standpoint, it might not make sense to look at an offer in February or even March. We're coming off the winter months, but surprisingly, prevailing market conditions are still fit and favorable. We would, again, suggest getting an earlier start on this renewal process or project prior to anything else, just so you know what options are available. I mean, if we can highlight a favorable offer to lock in now and have take effect, I believe you said middle of next year, maybe, many top tier suppliers would be willing to offer that or entertain a solution in that regard. What we wouldn't want to happen, which I know Dan had mentioned earlier, is this idea of backing yourself into a corner. and not focusing on that mid-2020 renewal until April of next year. It just leaves little time for the market to come off in case prices are peaked at that point. We wouldn't want an issue anyway, Allison, with the dealer where they, in hindsight, they should have locked into an offer that we gave them 6 months ago versus what's available now. But at least if that's the case, they at least have the peace of mind knowing that we started this early, we identified solutions early on, and the market's taken a different approach. But my answer simply to that question would be to start on the process sooner rather than later.
Okay, and I think you kind of addressed this, maybe Dan. We often get dealers have states or stores in multiple states, and are they able to use all that? Can they save for the store in Pennsylvania as well as, say, a store in New Jersey?
Yeah, Drew, I'll jump there, and absolutely, Allison. Now, what we often try to do is look at multiple options. So if we are able to aggregate those loads together, even though it's across state lines or across utility lines, we'll look at that. Generally, what we do is we'll say, let's run an RFP, request for pricing, aggregated, and then let's look at them individually as well. So we'll help you look at both options. Okay. And some suppliers are able to, are more attractive in New Jersey, for instance, and another supplier may be more attractive in Pennsylvania. But again, we're going to help you analyze both options. Does it make sense to aggregate them together? Does it make sense to be with one supplier from your accounting standpoint? Or are you simply looking for the best price for your Pennsylvania stores and the best price for your New Jersey stores? We're going to run multiple options to do that. But certainly any of the states that we work in, you can take advantage of at least looking at aggregating versus doing it separately as well. And we can kind of help you. Same within Pennsylvania. You may have some stores in MedEd and in Pico, for instance. We're going to run it as an aggregation, and we're going to run them separately to see what makes the most sense for you.
Okay. And I just have one final thing that we hear. A dealer's contract or a dealership, their contract's coming due, say, September of this year, but they have in the works maybe a buying another dealership, but that's not going to really culminate till the end of the year or end of the calendar year. Is there any way that suppliers can account for that increase in usage and accounts when they renew in September of 19?
Sure, Allison. Dan, I'll take this one. It's absolutely. There's a couple of different strategies or approaches with this sort of a unique scenario, and we've certainly seen it a lot over the last couple of years. They can't specifically disclose what's happening behind the scenes, but something might be coming online here in the next couple of months. There's a couple of different ways. One would be we could ask interested suppliers to include some sort of a proxy form or include a dummy account, meaning that they'll put a placeholder on the agreement for that particular account, as long as we're able to give them an idea of size and scope, hence where that proxy form would come into play. As long as we can give the supplier an idea of the usage, demand, contract quantities on this new account coming online, I believe you mentioned at the end of the year, that is typically enough for them to work with and piece together some sort of a solution, or be able to add that particular proxy or artificial account onto the current contract that we're looking at. Also, another option too that we deal with dealers constantly is just add-on contracts, add-on agreements. At any point in the contract, you have the ability to work with APPI to request add-on documents, meaning that this was unforeseen 2 years ago, but we're in a 4-year contract and we just bought a new store. So can you add this onto the current agreement? It's not always 100% that they can do it at the exact same price. We'll strive and negotiate on your behalf to make sure that we can get you that matching price. And if that won't work with the incumbent supplier, we look at alternative supplier solutions too. I was just working with a Philadelphia dealer with that exact same scenario this week. We had to place an additional dealership with an outside supplier from the all-encompassing contract that handled 28 plus of their other stores. But know that there are options, and absolutely dialogue is key. with suppliers, as we've been talking about all this morning. Dialogue is key. So if you know that there's an upcoming change, whether good or bad, to the expected load, quantities, contract, et cetera, voice that. Let us know. We'll relay that to the supplier so that there's no hiccups or speed bumps along the way that are unexpected.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
It looks as if we have no further questions at this time. I'd like to thank everybody for participating today. A special thank you to Allison for joining us and to our presenters, Dan and Drew. This concludes our program today. You may now disconnect.
Thank you all.
Thank you.